Was watching a movie with my sons. We're watching this movie called Rocky Balboa, and a very good movie. And one of the dialogues in this movie, Rocky teaches his son, about success principles. And this line, it's one of the very hard hitting line. It's not about how hard you get hit, but it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward, right? And so this is one line he keeps teaching his son, and the entire movie revolves around this theme, as to how important it is to keep moving forward even when you're hit. And when I was listening to this, the Bible verse that I was able to relate to, and this has been a verse which has been also very useful for me in my life. It is when you start the Bible, it starts with Genesis 1 to 4, right? And in the process of creation, God shows the creation of the earth, and there is a process around it. And it says, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. The earth was without form. So immediately when God created something, right, he created the heaven and earth, immediately there was a disruption. The earth was without form and void and darkness, right? So that was the second step. And the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. And then God said, let there be light, and there was light. And somewhere in this entire taught a pattern that whenever there is some intention, there will always be disruption. And when you are able to anticipate that disruption, and when we keep moving forward, there will be light, and that's the promise. And this has been happening in every situation. So anything that and I think it's part of the process. We go to the gym to make our body strong, but once we hit the gym, the body becomes weak, and that's a part of the process. Body breaks down, and then only it becomes strong, right? And so everything that we try to do, we are trying to do in business, that process will be there. First, there will be a break, and we have to push, and then there will be light. And the more and more I kept, and I've been reading a lot on success principles and what makes people and businesses succeed. A lot of times I read a lot of books, read a lot of management books, which Brenda was also mentioning. Finally, it roots down to some theological concepts, right? There will be a theology around it, and it comes down to the Bible. And that is where I always have this thing is, finally, why to go through so many books rather than you study the book. It has everything, and from this, whatever is giving us the messages from the book is the best message that we can have, and the principles that we can use. And that's where the study of the Bible became so much ingrained in the way I try and understand the Bible, and try and use it, and try to find out the principles which is there. And the attempt in the next 40 minutes will be is whatever I have understood, how the Bible can help, and the principle can help in helping build good, solid, scalable businesses. One of the niches that I am been researching on, and I'm working on to help businesses to scale up in a very solid, scalable way, right? And on a strong footing and strong foundation. And somewhere, I've just tried to put all these principles together, which can actually help a business build a very strong foundation to scale up. So just starting off is, and this concept got me a lot of clarity, and I want to start before this, just to give you a context as to, to identify what is our role, what is God's role, right? I like this example of surfing in the sea. When you go to surf, and if you've been surfing, and if you know to surf, whenever you're going to learn to surf, they will always teach you how to surf the wave, right? So there will be a teaching on to surfing the wave. There will never be anyone teaching you to create the wave, right? The wave can't be created. What can be created is to surf the wave. And understanding the role that, and everybody knows that what we need to learn is not to create the wave. That's impossible to do. What we can learn to do is to surf the wave. And the creation of the wave is God's role, right? The wave gets created, and that is where God creates it. Our role is, can we identify the wave, and can we surf that wave? And I think that's the role. If we are able to get that clarity of identifying, what's that opportunity, what's that wave that is there, and we're able to catch that wave, and we're able to surf that wave, I think most of the successful people, what I've seen, is the ability to surf the wave, the ability to find out what principles work, how you are able to take advantage of that opportunity, how you're able to surf that particular wave. And that is where the Bible is all about in life. I think it's more than a religious book for me in my mind. It's a book on how to live a life of success, how to live a life of principles where you can have everything in life if you're able to really understand and follow those implications or the principles in the Bible. And just to my understanding, right, from the studying of the Bible, and this is again another fundamental clarity that I got some years back, especially when I was studying the ministry of the word. The Bible is not a geography book, right? The Bible is not a history book. So there would be some geography around it. It'd be talking about some places. It's talking about certain places, but that entire the places are mentioned from a context, right? There is a context. So a lot of people says, oh no, this is written in the Bible, it is not there, this place is not there, this place is not there, right? But that, I mean, you're missing the point. Or it's not a history book, right? It is in the Bible doesn't teach us history, right? The history is given there. Yes, it is history there, history is there, but history is given with the context. But what the Bible is about spiritual truths, right? And that there is no error. The spiritual truth is there. History and geography is given as a context, and somehow we sometimes get too hung up on the history not being correct, the geography not being correct, and then questioning if the correctness of the Bible. I think that's fundamentally give me a lot of clarity. Bible is about principles. Bible is about the truths, and there are a lot of stories, or a lot of ways that is explained, and therefore that there is a history and there is a geography put into place. But the core essence of the Bible is those spiritual truths, and when we understand the spiritual truth, it really makes a difference in our lives. And I like to believe that these principles are like God's automation, right? So they work no matter who uses them. God has set it up in such a way that there are some principles that God has kept here, and anybody uses them will get that result. Sometimes you don't need to believe in God, but if you're using those principles that God set up, and it has to work with you, because it's like God's automation which is there. And so what I'm going to dwell on is some important principles which I believe really makes a difference in businesses. So the fundamental principle in the Bible is this, right? God said, let us make man in our image and our likeness, right? To rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, and over the livestock, and over all the earth itself, and every creature that crawls on it, right? And that's in Genesis 1:27. So very clear. God made us in his image and his likeness. And we'll just blow this up a little more deeper, right? What is the meaning of image? So the image of God is spirit, and we are also spirit. And the spirit is what differentiates us between animals and human beings. In science, we talk about that all of us are animals, right? But this is the core difference. An animal doesn't have a spirit. We have a spirit, and we are spirit, and God is spirit. And the way we are formed, and if you see in Genesis, it is that the breath of God was blown into us, right? So there was an element of God that entered into us. And so we have a supernatural part within us in creation itself, because the breath of God, we were created by the breath of God. And so there is, in each of us, there is an element of a supernatural part. I'll explain this a little more later, when I talk about creation. The second part is the likeness of God, right? The character of God. And the character of God, there, if you look at the character, really, and I can sum it up into three main characteristics of God, right? And one is he's a creator, and he talks about, and he creates like three categories of creation. There is a creation which is the sun, moon, stars. Then there's the creatures that he creates, and the last he creates is co-creators, right? He creates humans, and co-creators is where he gives us the mind to co-create, right? And to co-create. And that's what differentiates us between all his creation, which is there. So the first element that we know about God is that he is a creator. The second is, God built humans to build relationships, right? I mean, God loves to connect, right? And he builds, and that the entire purpose, we learn from catechism, we learn that, God made us to love him, serve him. And then the commandments, if you see also, right, Jesus gives us, there are two main commandments: love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and all your strength. And the second is love your neighbor as yourself, right? So there's a connection is another very important element for the characteristic of God. And the third is contribution, where somewhere God, wanted this connection, and the entire Old Testament is about creating that connection. He got the people from slavery, got them getting in the promised land. So many miracles he did. He got them. He gave them the 10 commandments, and he gave them the mandate to say that you keep the commandments, you'll get the blessings. And he tried to bring that connection, and somewhere that connection really did not materialize until God had to finally give his son, right, to die for the world, and through his son, he wanted to get this connection, and the contribution became a very important element in building that connection which is there. And so in life and through fulfillment that we get, right? I truly believe that because we are made in the image and likeness of God, our life is fulfilled when we are in our spirit able to connect with God's spirit, right? And the entire love of God flows into our hearts. That vacuum gets, filled with God's love and heart, and we are acting at the characteristic of God, right? When we are creating, right, using our God-given gifts, and we create, and when we connect and we build relationships with God and with fellow people around us, and we really contribute by serving to people that God has assigned us to contribute, we are in that flow, right? We are in that flow which God created. And when we are in our flow, true fulfillment happens, right? We are creating, connecting, and contributing. And so really, if we are not getting fulfilled, maybe we are not following this aspect of life, right? It's about being in the flow is when we do this together, right? And how do we do this, and how do we create, connect, and contribute? And then the first part is, to identify the God-given gifts, and, are we using those God-given gifts to do what we do, and in our work, in our businesses, are we using them, right? And again, in Genesis 1:28, it says, God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it. And there are two important words here. He blessed them, right? So first, God gives us capacity, right? He blesses us. He blesses us with something, right? He blesses us with a gift. There is a gift given to each one of us. And he says, be fruitful. And if you look at the fruit by essence, the fruit, the seed of the fruit is always inside the fruit, right? And so when God says to be fruitful, the seed has already been put inside of us, right? The gift is already inside us. And it is our job to discover that gift, right? What is that gift that God has put inside each of us for us to really use that? And when we use that, right, and when we really and I truly believe, and when we really work to what we are created for, we move the human race forward. I'll just give the example of a honeybee, right? The God created the honeybee. Its purpose of creating the honeybee was to create honey, right? Its purpose was that. So the bee used to go, it goes to create honey, right? And it does its purpose and its job. It just does job of creating honey. But then there is a side effect of what happens to what it does. When the bee goes and it starts honey, it starts pollinating, right? And it pollinates the entire forest. It pollinates, the entire, plantations which is there. Today we have entire forest and entire plantations all because of what a bee does. And the bee does is it just lives its purpose. It just goes to create honey, right? And we have oxygen, and we get this entire universe, works best because the bee does its job. Similarly, when we are using our gifts, and when we use our gifts to solve problems which is there, right? Typically, we just solve a problem, but what's the beauty that happens is when we solve a problem, it creates 10 new problems. And when you create 10 new problems, it's actually not 10 new problems, it's 10 new opportunities. And that's where there is a new market that comes in. And then, there is a market that expands, and then there is a growth, right? Apple created the iPhone, right? It built the iPhone, but it just not the iPhone. Because of the iPhone, then there were the AirPods, then you got the cover phone cases, the covers, right? There are a lot of ancillary market that got created just because of that. And so when we use our gifts, and when we really create and we solve a problem, it creates more opportunities for everyone, right? And everybody moves forward. And that's where the beauty of businesses is that where everybody else runs away to solve a problem, a business looks at it and says, okay, this is a problem. God's given me a gift. How do I solve this problem? And by just solving this problem and building a business for us, maybe it's like the honeybee, we feel that we are, we are building the business for us, but actually we are helping an ecosystem, and we're moving the entire race forward, right? And that's the contribution that we work through even our gifts. And so that, how do we identify these gifts, right? And there are a lot of ways to identify it, which is there. One easy way is, you ask your 5 to 10 close friends and members, what you're naturally good at, right? And people very close to us really know what is good at. And you just take them to, top 5 things or top 3, each of them to give it to you. And then what you do is you just collect all of this and you see a pattern. Now, what is that pattern? What are the things that people are consistently telling that you are good at, right? And those are things that you need to really take in a cognizance of, because that's a gift. Because consistently people have observed something about you, then that's a gift. You could go a little more professional. I mean, you want to go more scientific, there are a lot of tests that helps us find us, right? And for professionals, I would say the Gallup Health Finder is a very good test which helps us the strength. For businesses, Well Dynamics is a very nice test that helps us how to what is our core strengths which are there. And once we identify those gifts and those talents that are there, there would be a lot of areas that we could use those gifts. And the key is matching it in high demand areas where we solve problems which are more complex, more difficult, where people are willing to pay for. And that's when you have a viable and a good business, right? And these are some demand areas which I have just mentioned on. And I think this match is very, very important. You have a gift and you're able to solve problems big problems where people are willing to pay you for, right? And this is another very important element that I've observed, that just because if you're a gift doesn't mean that you'll be successful. Gifts just helps us to give a good head start, but doesn't mean that we become successful at that. The story of Tendulkar and Kamble, I think Kamble is more gifted than Tendulkar, but I think Tendulkar's diligence and Tendulkar's discipline of working on his gift is what made him world class. Whereas that discipline is something that Kamble lacked. And that's the reason, even though he was so gifted, he was not really able to use his gift. And most of the time is when we operate at a natural gift, maybe we started at an operating at level 6. But real money is when you're world class, right? When you are at 9, 10, world class, right? Then there's the money. And there is this rule which is there, which is called the 10,000 hour rule. And I was reading in a book, I forgot the name, where very beautifully he says is that excellence for anything, it takes time, right? It's a 10,000 hours that you spend on it is really to become world class, right? So it takes time, which is there. And that's where persistence is an important element, and our ability to spend 50% of the time that naturally we are good at just sets us up for success, right? And this is the starting point. It will set us up for success when we start allocating the time which we are naturally good at. 50% of the time at least we're naturally good at. And I'll give you an example of how I've seen this work in my own life. I'm an introvert by nature. I feel very stressed when talking to people and standing on stage and talking. But when I am talking about things that are close to my heart, so there are 3 things that are very close to my heart. One is family, second is spirituality, third is business. When these are 3 elements that are there, which is close to my heart, right? I am a different personality. Because I truly believe I have something valuable to offer. And then the other things becomes easier, right? I'm able to speak, I'm able to communicate. So a lot of times what becomes very difficult in a normal situations, when you're operating on your strength, automatically everything else becomes easier, right? And then you do it, and this doesn't happen over a period. It takes some time, right? So it takes time to become, but it's important to give it that time, and it's important to focus on that strength for some period of time before you become world class. The second element is about connecting. It's about building relationships, and building relationships is, I believe there are two ways of building the relation. One is your vertical relationship, that's with God, and there is a horizontal relationship with man, and both is extremely important, right? Just having this vertical relationship is no good, and just having the horizontal relationship is no good, right? And why do we need this vertical relationship? Why do we need relationship with God, especially in business? And this has been my research that I have been reading and come to really believe this, that for a business, the more complex problems we solve, the more money that we make, right? And complex problems can't be solved with our level of intelligence or our level of imagination most of the times. And I was reading this book, which is Think and Grow Rich, another beautiful classical book. And this book talks about studying all the forefathers of America, the creators of America. And Napoleon Hill writes this book. He studies them for 25 years. Studies Rockefeller, Charles Schwab, Henry Ford, all these 500, all these multi-billionaires who have created America, what America is today. And he finds out, what is that success principles that they have been using. And he identifies there are 4 areas where ideas come from, right? From ideas that come from. So one is that, there is self-reading. On your own, you're reading, you're studying, you're doing all the studying, your own self-knowledge, right? And there is a significant portion of your knowledge that you use to solve problems. Second is you collaborate, right? You have a mastermind where you have and you bounce off ideas with other people, and from there you build on the ideas, and their ideas originate, and you're able to solve problem. The third is the calmness of the mind, right? So a lot of times 95% of the ideas or the thoughts are in your subconscious mind. So you could have the answer in your subconscious mind, may not be in your conscious mind. And when you're quiet in your mind in meditation, you're quiet in your mind, you're able to get answers. And not only just from your subconscious mind. Again, it talks about there are thoughts that emit from other people's subconscious minds. And a lot of time when you have a question, and that's the reason we say what you want, write it down, keep it as part of your mind. Your mind searches for those solutions in other people's minds, right? There's a subconscious mind that comes in, and suddenly it comes like an idea into your mind, and then there's a breakthrough that you get. And the fourth, he talks about the power of infinite intelligence. He doesn't call it God. He says infinite intelligence, a superior being which is there. And he says the most biggest breakthroughs comes when the source of wisdom comes from the infinite intelligence. When you have a problem, you're sitting there in prayer and you are reflecting and you're just surrendering it to God. And then there is this idea that comes in, right? A breakthrough that you get. And that's the breakthrough that changes everything, right? It changes the game, it changes industries, it changes the path that take it forward. And this has been a very consistent thing of all of them getting this breakthrough in through the infinite intelligence. And I truly believe that when we do our anything that we do in life, spending that quiet time with God in the mornings, and then as a habit, and we have it, we can get those breakthroughs that we are looking for, those ideas that we're looking for, that can actually change the path very easily for us. And Templeton, again, another billionaire, very, very beautifully says is that we have the most powerful weapon on earth, that is love and prayer. And the Bible gives us this very beautiful verse in Joshua 1:8. It says, the book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, that you may observe to do according to all that is written in it, for then you will make your way prosperous. And I think this word was, it was like a big eye-opener for you. God didn't say, I will make it prosperous for you, right? God says that I'm giving you the book. I'm giving you the secret of this book. You got to meditate it and you will make, right? So the prosperity and the key and the success is there in our hands. Our job is to meditate. Our job is to reflect, and God will reveal, right? And what I've seen is revelation has a pattern. Okay, a lot of time, I used to struggle this when I read the Bible initially. I never used to get this revelation. But the key, what I started seeing revelation is when I started seeing something revealed to me when I'm reading the Bible, and I started applying it in my life. When I started revealing and applying, more gets revealed. And at times when we struggle and saying nothing is getting revealed, we may just want to step back and say, are we applying what is getting revealed? Because the more we apply what is getting revealed, we will be seeing God's hand guiding us in everything that we do. The second part of the relationship is about building relationship with others, right? And why we need to build and why it is important for us. God gave us talents in such a way, and God did not give us all the talents for one person. And God, that's the way He has made it, and each one has a gift. And by design, I truly believe it's by design so that we are interdependent upon each other, right? It's by design. So we need each other to work on each other's gifts. And when we work in union, there is power when we work together, right? And that is where Deuteronomy 32:30 says, should one chase 1,000, two put 10,000. And so the maths is very beautiful, right? One and maybe two, it should be double, right? But it's 10 times more powerful. When two people come in, it's one, it chases 1,000, two put 10,000, it's more 10 times better. And when we are able to work together, the power manifests 10 times. It's not twice, right? And that's the beauty of really working in relationships with each other. And so whenever we are trying to do some task and whenever we're trying to do something, the most logical question that we keep asking ourselves is how to do it, right? I think the most important question that we need to ask is, who can do this for us, right? This is something I don't know. This is not my gift, but who has this gift, right? Who is good at this? And asking those questions of who helps us to find out who's the network who's the person that I can associate with, who's this person who can we can be partner with. And I think those gives faster breakthroughs, which is there. Similarly in sales, right? When you're struggling, you want to improve sales, until the who is clear, who's my customer, what's the problem I solve for them, right? Who's that person who I can who am I serving, and what is it that is problem that is saying? Until that is not clear, the breakthrough does not happen. So the who is very important, and once the who is understood, right, then we use how do we communicate so that we attract those people who can benefit from our service. And this is another beautiful verse that I like in the Bible, and the power of communication in this particular verse is what I understood in Genesis 11:1, and this is the Tower of Babel story, right? It says the people are trying to build the tower, and then God comes to see these people of tower, and now God could have done anything to destroy that tower, right? So God could have just hit lightning, tower could have broken. But just read, just reflect on what God is saying, right? The Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. So the language is so important, right? That if they're able to communicate and union, they're there, then nothing is impossible for them. And so how does God stop this at that point of time happening? He confuses languages, right? He goes and confuses the languages, and that is more powerful than lightning hitting that particular place. When you break communication, when you break communication as a barrier, things disrupt. When there's communication, where there's union, it accelerates growth, it accelerates success, it accelerates a lot of things. And that is the power of words. In Proverbs 12:14, it says, from the fruit of their lips people are filled with good things, and the work of their hands bring them reward. And this is something that is so important as to what we speak. The words is like the gift to another person, and everything that we speak is so important, because it affects the other person, right? It affects the team, it affects our relationship, it affects our spouse, it affects our children. And sometimes we use words very loosely, and that's, I think, one of the biggest blunders I have personally observed. And it made a lot of differences when I start speaking. It's like what a word comes out from my mouth, it has to be like a gift to another person. And this has also got a scientific reason. And there is Dr. Marcio Emoto. He does this research on studying the molecular structure of water. And what he does is he speaks words to water, and he sees the molecular structure changing, right? So if you look at this molecular structure of water, when you speak love, right, and you see the molecular structure of thank you, but you speak a very negative word, and the molecular structure of the completely changes. And our body is 70% water, and our brain is like 90% water, right? And it affects us, it affects others. And it's important on what's the words we use and how we use our words, right? And the choice of words, learning to use words, learning to use and the right way to use is the most important, I believe, is for successful businesses, successful relationships, building successful communities. And I think the key is not about speaking well, it's not about how good your English is. And I think these three important things are there, which I think is good for good communication. One is, I think the most important is a good heart is more important than how well you speak. And one of the things that I used to be very fascinated about Moses' story. Now, when God comes and picks up Moses, right, and tells Moses, you have to go to Egypt and you have to get the people out and talk to Pharaoh and get the people out, right? And Moses then says, God, I cannot talk, right? I stammer, and he's giving excuses to God. And then he said, God, okay, I will get Aaron. Aaron is coming there. Aaron will talk for you. You go take Aaron and go. And I used to think, if talking was the most important thing that had to be done at that point of time, why did God choose Moses and not Aaron? Right? He would have directly spoken to Aaron and told Aaron, go and talk to him, because Aaron is a better communicator. Go and talk to the Pharaoh and get the people out and come there. But then I got the answer, right? When Moses goes to when the people are there, and Moses goes to to get the 10 commandments, and he goes on the mountain, Aaron, people, then start putting pressure on Aaron, right? And Aaron crumbles at that point of time. And then Aaron makes that entire calf, right? And then I understood the heart is more important, right? More than what you speak. And when you have the right heart, your communication is better. People are able to understand, because everybody reads everybody else, right? And the more authentic you are, the more better you communicate. And that's where it links to the next one is, truly we should believe that what we are doing and we're selling a product helps our customers, right? And we are doing a service by helping them, because selling is a transference of feeling. It's not about just communicating words. It's a feeling that we communicate. And when we truly believe that this is going to help someone else, the way we communicate will be a completely different way that will be there, right? And when we are doing this, and when we are aligned to what God's creativity is there in us, we will believe that when we are doing and we are using God's gift to serve mankind, God will just bless us, and he'll bless the people that we are working with, right? And that's a promise. I will bless those who bless you. And when you are blessed and you're working, automatically the blessings will flow through everyone there. And the last and important thing in communication is about listening, right? And it's listening is more important. And the more and more I think sometimes we just focus on the solution, and I truly believe spending and being expert at the problem is much more important than and focusing on the solution. The more clearly you define the problem, I think half the battle is won. And this analogy is like typically you go to a doctor, and if the doctor is able to articulate the symptoms that you have in a very beautiful way, more better than you can articulate them yourself, subconsciously you have sold to the doctor. You believe that the doctor has a solution, because the doctor is able to articulate the problem very well. And this very, very similarly in our own businesses, when we are able to articulate the problem our customers have, and more better than they can articulate in themselves, subconsciously they're sold to you, right? Just selling becomes easier. They believe that you have a solution, and that's where these are the important foundations for good selling or good sales or communication, which is there. And the third and important element is the glue that binds everything, right? It's the relationship, is contribution. And I'm coming to the Bible verse where it says, but he that is the greatest among you shall be the servant, right? And this is a very beautiful verse where someone, one of the apostles asked Jesus, who is the greatest, right? And Jesus gives this example. And this struck me very well when I was struggling at work. So at one point of time, I hit a stagnation at work. I was not getting promoted for a long time, and I was very frustrated. I was ticking everything off. All my targets were met. All the things that they told me to do, I was doing, but they were not promoting me, right? And I used to be very angry and upset, and I used to it used to be a very bad behavior from my part itself. And one day I realized that in my own team, we were doing an assessment for promotion, right? And we were debating about who had to be promoted. And there were two people, we were debating who will be promoted. And I picked up one guy, okay, to be promoted. And there is another guy, all of us agreed that this guy has to be promoted. And, he got promoted. And I was driving back, and I was just thinking about my own behavior. Now, when I was my own behavior, and I was thinking that in the entire promotion discussion that we had, and we spoke for so long, never in the discussion did the topic come up as did they really meet the targets? How good their work, right? We never discussed that at all. What got discussed is who's the guy you can depend on. Who in the last moment something goes wrong, you can depend on this guy. You get something, you want to get something done, he will never let you down. Now, who's the guy who's the most receptive, who's nice, who's willing to try out something that you tell him, right? And all those are the attributes which I was judging another person when I'm promoting. And then I was thinking, and someone looking at me and looking at those attributes, and if they have to ask me about myself, right? Would they feel, am I ticking all those boxes? And it was no, right? And then it hit me that these elements are much more important, like rather than just ticking off and doing all the things that they're supposed to be done. But the others of a service mindset of genuinely going and making a difference to people's lives, making a difference to the team, making a difference to people around, right? That was more valuable or more differentiates people at work, right? Which is there. And that was big eye opener for me, is that, service and making sure that another person wins, making sure that, that the team wins, that became so important. And that really struck me. And then the key is about, then adding value, right? And value becomes a very, very important thing in contribution, and ability to know when we are adding value, when we are not adding value. And we have this thing of customers are asking you to reduce the price. Then there is an indication, means that you are not adding value, right? And that's another way of saying you're not adding value. Price is the only differentiator for you. And I have this very beautiful example where I say, right, I paid 45,000 rupees for my iPhone. Okay, and I want to sell this iPhone for 70,000 rupees. Can I sell this iPhone for 70,000 rupees? I bought it for 45,000 rupees. How do I sell it for 75,000 rupees? So if I go and just tell the person and say, okay, this is an iPhone, I want to sell it for 75,000, nobody's going to buy it. Now, if I just think and sit and think and say, okay, how can I add value to this phone that I make it more valuable, even though it's a second-hand phone, people can willing to pay 75,000 rupees for this phone. And if I look at it and I can say, okay, what is there? Okay, I know because of my connects, I know at least 100 crore net worth people which is around here, right? I have those numbers on that phone with me, right? So that's valuable. Okay, I have this network with these numbers on this phone. The second could be is that, I'm a learner, right? I mean, I like learning and training, and I spend a lot of money on absorbing and learning and training, and a lot of stuff I have which I can digitize and can put it as an app of all the trainings that I have, like 10 lakh worth of training that I've done. I put it all as part of an app, And I tell someone that, okay, I'll give you this phone. I give you this phone with these contacts, right? And I will give a reference of these contacts when I give you this phone. And I'll give you this app, which I have a 10 lakh worth of trainings. I have put all this in this particular app. Now, suddenly, this phone becomes much more valuable. And I'm selling, okay, I want to sell this for 1 lakh. Most of the time, any sane person will take it, right? Which is there. What did I do? I just a simple phone. But what I try to do is I try to just add value to that phone. Automatically, it became, more valuable, and the price was not an issue. And a lot of times when we hit price is an issue. And I think then to just sit and to just look at what is that value I can add, that price doesn't become an issue. And I think we just brainstorm on that, finding out ways of how you can add value. Automatically, price doesn't become an issue. And the things that really matter and value to people is when you make it easier, faster, more efficient, right? You work on these elements, they make it much more valuable for customers, right? And then price doesn't become an issue. And what I've realized is that there is no correlation between what the price that you charge and what it costs you, right? People pay for results. They don't pay for your effort. They don't pay for your time. They pay for the results, right? And I like this FedEx story, which is there. It talks about a person that, this entire assembly line that he has, and the entire and there is this courier which needs to sort out this assembly line, and suddenly the assembly line stops and nobody knows how to start this assembly line, and everybody's struggling, and there is a deadline that this sorting has to be completed. And so then they said, okay, we know the guy who set this assembly line, let's call him. So they go and call this person from the who set up the assembly line, and when you call him, he comes there and he just fixes one screw, right? And automatically the assembly line starts working. And then, okay, so everybody's very relieved, it starts working and all. And then this guy goes and gives a bill, right? He gives a bill of $10,000 to the owner of FedEx. So this guy says, it's just 2 minutes job. You came, you knew, just one screw you fixed. You're charging $10,000. So the guy says that to fix that screw, okay, is only $1. But to know which screw to fix was $9,999, right? And when you give results, people are willing to pay. I mean, they don't care, how long it took to do it. And that is where, another thing that people are willing to pay for is the level of service of experience that you would have. The more you're able to differentiate people, the more you're able to give a service experience that is more superior, automatically, you don't have a issue on price. And I've seen this in my own office. We have a coffee machine. It's a cafe coffee day machine, which is there, right? You need to go there, you need to pick up a coffee, and you can have it. It's free. It's kept on the floor. And we have another cafe coffee day, which is down. You come down and you can go there, but you have to pay for it because someone makes that coffee for you in the same machine and he gives it to you. First, I thought it's so illogical, right? You have every floor, there's a cafe coffee day machine that is there. And you have a floor, you have one guy standing there, and you go there and you have to pay for it. And I was thinking, which idiot why are they doing this? Why are they kept to one floor, one guy down, where you pay when anybody can go on the floor and take the coffee? But I was surprised. There will be a queue down to go and take the coffee rather than go and take the coffee, and they make the coffee yourself from the cafe coffee day. And that's when I realized people are willing to pay for a service. Even though if it is free, people value service, right? When someone is there and somehow that cafe coffee day down guy is able to mix, or he's able to better the coffee taste. So they're willing to go down and pick up the cafe coffee day from there rather than take it from the same machine themselves. And sometimes, just a sincere prayer. A lot of times we don't have money, we don't have something that we can offer. But I feel, a genuine prayer with someone who's struggling is much, much more valuable than any money that can provide. Sometimes we don't have anything to offer. A prayer that we offer with that person can be much, much more powerful for that person at that point in time. And that could be a lot of valuable. So value to create really don't need money, right? You need intention, and you need a thinking that has to be there, and value can be created. And the more and more we spend time on how we can add value, automatically we are contributing at a very higher level, right? And then you will never have any competition. And this becomes so true. And we know in the Bible, the wealth of Solomon. The Solomon has been one of the most richest and wealthiest men on the earth, right? Which is there. And Queen Sheba, when she comes to Solomon, she makes a very beautiful observation, right? And then this, it sums up in this very nice verse. She says, "Praise be to the Lord your God, who has delighted in you and placed you on the throne of Israel. Because of the Lord's eternal love for Israel, he has made you king to maintain justice and righteousness." And he gave to the king 120. So she gave him money, right? And so see her perspective, right? So she goes there, she sees the wealth, she sees everywhere, and she feels that because God loved Israel so much that he made a king like Solomon to rule over them, right? It was because the love of the people that Solomon was made king to serve them so because he served at such a highest order that people when they see that it's a God blessing that the king Solomon is ruling over them. And I think this is the key to contribution, right? So if you look at when Solomon was asked what you want from God, and Solomon asked God, give me the wisdom to serve your people. So Solomon had a heart of serving people, right? And the result was, that he had wealth and fame and the important thing was the people felt that God loved them so much that they gave Solomon to them, right? So that was the result. And similarly, if you have to see that, the key for you have used the learning of Solomon in our professional life, can we, can our team say, right, the company, that the team loved us so much that, he gave, you as a part of the team, right, which is there. That feeling can the team get when we are playing in a team, and when we are part of a team, we are contributing so much to the team that the team actually feels, yeah, it's a blessing. God bless this team. You are as a blessing for us, right? Similarly, in the business, can our customers feel, right? God, you've been a blessing for me, right, as a vendor, right? And God has given me to you to really help me out, right? And when that feeling of blessing, they feel, right, God has been good to me, that he led me to you and he connected me to you, and that's I think, a sense of contribution where then we will never have any competition. And when we operate at that level of service and at that level, we are able to make a difference to people's lives. And I want to finally end with this is the highest form of contribution is, I think, when you can give to who cannot pay you back, right? And that's an important part. And I always have this question of, the world's richest, they're generous because they're rich, or they became rich because they're generous, right? And I truly like to believe that they became rich because of their heart and because they're generous. And I have my own understanding as to why God rewards when you're generous. So God, so by design, there is an injustice that is getting created, right? Because everyone is given a free will. Some people choose to use that free will and some don't use it. And some use the free will more intelligently and better and they move on in life. The others, don't use it. And then there is a disparity, they don't succeed. But what happens is for generation, this keeps happening. And sometimes, it affects generations after that. So a lot of times where you are born, which family you're born, which country you are born, half your battle is one where you were born, right? Which is there. If you're born in Africa versus were born in America, right? There's a huge difference between two people. But there's no fault of the person being born in Africa, and there is no big thing that the guy did in America, right? So half your battles that are won even before you are born. And I think when we take our responsibility to help those disadvantaged people and help them to get that shot at life, right? When we are help those people who are struggling, who are, the disadvantage, and we try to build them up and we are able to contribute and bring them up, we become that hands, and legs of God, which is there. And when we do that through our work or through our businesses, and we are able to be, for a greater cause or a bigger cause, we're able to uplift and make and give an advantage to people who are disadvantaged, right? God is never going to let us down in that. And I've seen people who have this intention. That's the reason they give an award. I mean, and this is there from, if you studied, the history part from America itself. Rockefeller is another one, which is there, the world's richest at that point of time, and the most generous, which is there. Charles Schwab, Templeton, who started this entire mutual fund industry, right? He's again a big contributor of wealth. In our new thing, which Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, right? They are again distributors of wealth. In our own home, Tata's is one like that. Infosys has this philosophy of giving back, and so there is a sense of energy that is there when you are doing something of purpose. The energy is at a very, very high level when you feel that you are working on a greater purpose, and that energy is what drives everything, and everything is energy, right? And you're able to work at a particular level, and you're able to drive at a particular level. And the way I truly believe is, when we become looking at ourselves, instead of just looking at ourselves as a business for us, when we see that our business becomes a channel where God can bless through us as an abundance, and we're just a channel through that, magic happens, right? And I think great abundance happens when we have that mindset, when we build the business. And so just to end, the formula for fulfillment is when we yield to God and service people at the highest level, and we create solutions for problems, connect with God and build relationships and contributing for providing results for our customers, we cannot go wrong, right? We will build a very solid business. Thank you.
Yes, we can.